Good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. So I hope you've enjoyed your day so far. We're here in the Lecture Theatre 1 in Roland Lewinsky building for our kind of final session of the day. So this is now the British Computing Society panel. What this is going to do is going to bring all the day's three themes together and explore how getting businesses, communities and educators working together and how that can underpin the long-term success for Southwest tech industries. So in the interest of moving along and not rambling on too much, I am going to hand you over to the Southwest representative of the Southwest branch of the BCS.
That's me.
Wonderful Shirley Atkinson.
Hello, so yes, I'm Shirley Atkinson. I'm part of the committee for the BCS Southwest branch, as well as my many other hats, and being a lecturer here and things like that. So yes, this is the panel where we invite questions and we've got some things to think about and bringing those things together. So I'd like the panel to introduce themselves. We can go that way.
No, it's fine.
Hi, hello, I'm Caroline Vaan-Canning. I work for the Raspberry Pi Foundation and the Southwest Coordinator for Co-Clubs.
Hi, I'm Belinda. I'm founder and director of Software Cornwall, and I run Being Agile and Agile on the Beat.
Hello, I'm Christian. I work for Microsoft and I'm running on coffee.
Hi, Toby Parkins. I'm one of the directors of HeadForwards, the software outsource company, and also I'm involved in Software Cornwall and Agile on the Beach.
Wonderful. So before I invite some questions from the floor, I have one question to sort of kick off with. So I'll kick off with a question to give you some time maybe to think about what you might want to ask us. So panel, what I'm interested in is how can the tech industry stimulate innovative partnerships? Does anyone have anything to say?
Well, there's a lot of stuff we can do. We can run events. We can help with events. I mean, me being here today from Corp, Microsoft in America is a very odd thing to do, but I think it's much more refreshing than being in another conference where there's a massive barrier between local companies and where I am normally sitting. So that's a good opportunity with this. And of course, there's all kind of like hackathons. There's partner outreach systems. I go a lot to companies to do brown bag sessions where I go into companies that cannot afford sending their engineers to events, and I just come to them and do something in the lunch break, so to say. So the more we reach out to where people are sitting rather than expecting them to come to us is a good opportunity. Of course, outsourcing and open sourcing our things is the most important thing to reach companies and reach outside people, because I came from Mozilla to Microsoft with the main job of helping with like open sourcing a lot of technology that we had, because in the past we just gave it over there and hoped a magical community evolves around that, and this is not how open source works. You also have to put the human effort in, not only send the code to somebody and hope they maintain it for you.
I think one of the most important things if you're trying to connect to companies and businesses is that if you are running a business where you want to get better media attention, is that to offer a really good corporate responsibility program.
And in which case you will then start getting other companies interested at all, because you'll see what benefit you're doing and other companies want to follow you. So that's a great way of getting extra partnerships as well.
I suppose from my perspective, we work with a lot of small businesses with Software Cornwall, and I think one of the best things, I brought one of our robots along because I think he makes a nice little mascot on the table, but also he's one of our Mission to Mars robots, and that's a real innovative partnership, because we had lots of kids contacting our members saying that they wanted to come on work experience weeks, they wanted to come and learn about coding, and obviously letting 14-year-olds loose on your code base is quite a dangerous thing to do. So it wasn't really an easy thing for local businesses to be able to give those kids the work experience. So they got together, came up with a Mission to Mars, and now we're regularly running these missions where we get volunteers from different businesses come and help mentor, and you see the kids transform in the week. So it's so satisfying work. But actually by doing that, they've built interrelationships between the businesses, they've got to know the schools better, they've got to know it's something great that they can shout about their business, that they're involved, and that it adds beautiful credibility, I think, when you're talking to your customers, if you can say, actually, yeah, we also work with the community to help get kids into tech. And that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for local businesses wanting to collaborate and wanting to make something happen. So I think that's, sometimes it's not always the kind of financial stuff that necessarily we're looking for out of the partnerships, but more of the social side of it as well.
Mars is far away, it's not moving at all.
So I think the most important thing here is people, and fundamentally, agreeing with what everyone else has said, but I think yes, companies need to do more things, but ultimately we've got to think about this as a people thing, and so a conference like this it should be really based around people and what people are going to get out of it as an event. Then we need to think about actually if what we're doing there is actually creating communities. So this is a community here, and hopefully it will carry on next year and become an annual or more frequent event. But the key thing is not to have siloed communities. So actually going to different places and actually going to different conferences, and so companies should be encouraging the staff and paying the staff to go to different conferences and to do different community activities. But the key thing is to extend that, to allow individuals to have to be part of as many networks as possible, and then ultimately great ideas come from people, and if you just get the networks as wide as many of them as possible, then I think that's really great ideas will be hatched.
Thank you. Yes, so we're hearing about the importance of networks, the importance of going to where people are, and what's happening. I think it's really good that we've got these things happening in our region. It's fabulous. So is there anyone who wants to comment from that? Yes.
From work, because I get to kind of put my head out on that computer screen and kind of look around. And then we obviously have all the software coming and that sort of thing. But is there a way you can sort of maintain the momentum from this conference by spinning things off so we don't just all go back to work and put our heads back in the sand? How do you kind of foster that, something that kind of, what could you create today that you could carry on and help people kind of in that community?
There's a lot of opportunity there, and I mean, when you said it's not only not only meeting in the cyberspace, I think meeting in the cyberspace after this is very important. As much as it's fascinating for me to speak at conferences, it's great to see blog posts from people like you who've been here and see how they found the event from their points of view. And that's how my career as a blogger started, just covering conferences or meetups where I was and saying something about them, and then people invited me to more and invited me as a speaker and so on and so forth. So one thing that I said in my talk, and I think a lot of people can always consider as well, is keep your eyes open for other conferences that are happening right now, and instead of sending people there, download one of the videos, watch it in the office with your team, and then have a discussion if the technologies or the ideas discussed in that would be applicable to you. So that's one thing I introduced in Yahoo when I worked there to get people involved. And the other thing we did was lightning talks in the office. So if I sent one of my engineers to a conference, I made it mandatory that that person gave a presentation about the conference in the office later on, to realize first of all that they didn't go off and had a jolly and didn't go to the conference, and secondly for them to start teaching other people and becoming a presenter themselves. So we introduced on Lightning Talks 11:45 on a Thursday, just before lunch, 5-minute presentation about a technical problem we fixed in one of our products, 5-minute discussion if that was the right approach, and 5 minutes who's going to document it and make it a best practice to be reused. So that way I taught a lot of my engineers to come out of their shell and start presenting and talking much more. So it was a great opportunity to get your social skills honed. Another great thing in the office to do if you don't want to go that hardcore way is PowerPoint karaoke. So on a Friday, bring a few drinks in, download random PowerPoints off the internet, and people have to present them for 5 minutes at a time. So you never know what you're presenting, which is a great skill to have when you see that technology always fails you on stage as well. And that's a great opportunity for people to realize this is not a thing that only a few people go to. We have to expand our place of work to outside events as well. Without spending much money, you can do it with these free tricks.
Sorry. Oh, there you go. I don't usually need a microphone. This is. I think, you know, online is brilliant for connecting after conferences as well. So social media and LinkedIn, so we're kind of generating those relationships. But I think something we do really well, and we can do even better, you know, in Cornwall and Devon, is running more meetups, running more. So I talk about turning, because I'm involved in Agile on the Beach, which is a 2-3 day conference once a year. But my ultimate goal is to create the continuous Agile on the Beach. So we are living and breathing that every day. So I think the more that we can, you know, as individuals actually kind of go, yeah, I want to talk about this subject, I'm going to put it out there on Meetup. I'm always amazed that whenever somebody suggests a meetup, there's always usually half a dozen people straight away who are in, you know, and they want to come along to that. And I think because we're so distributed as well, actually having lots of little meetups is a really good way to keep our momentum going, and then having these big events as well where we all come together as well. So yeah, I think taking advantage of technology but complementing it. So it's got to be a balance. But once you've met somebody face to face, then actually that online relationship, I think, is a bit easier as well. So
I'll compliment basically what Belinda's just said. It's really important that, yeah, if you make contacts here via LinkedIn or whatever, you could join up, but continue the contact, because there's nothing worse than making a connection with somebody and then sort of not talking to them again unless you see them next year. So yes, meetups is brilliant. Yes, talking online is brilliant, but if you actually then end up talking to them face to face, that can make such a huge difference, because you get the context of what you're talking about better. You get different opinions, and it's a, you know, it's basically what we all really like doing, socialising.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we do at HeadForwards is a monthly kind of mini conference, sort of lunchtime kind of talks thing, and essentially one of the things we do encourage when people have been to conferences to come back and actually share those experiences and share the interesting things that they've learned at the conference back with the rest of their team and with, you know, other people in their respective organisations. So some of the ideas that I think you have to pick up at conferences like this, you can then take back and then sort of keep them alive by then sharing them internally with colleagues. And then of course writing, you know, actually if you feel inclined to, you know, write a blog post about some of the things you've learned. And again, that allows you to then engage with the wider, you know, potentially the original authors or with some other people that were at the conference. So again, it's, you know, it's about communication both internally and externally, but the key thing is to make it happen.
So some fabulous ideas there. Thank you. Anything else from the audience? Anything else?
Hi. It's really interesting talking about meetups and coming together as a community. But a lot of the challenges around technology, IT, and these kind of things we don't solve by getting together as a group of IT people. It's how do you encourage. One of the things I've been impressed with today actually is the diversity of topics discussed. It's not just been all IT focused, it's been design focused, it's been educational focused, arts focused. how do you increase that diversity to include people such as business people, accountants? Because, like you say, to work successfully, you need to understand all of these people issues in order to do successful projects. How do you increase that diversity in meetups to different groups?
Any thoughts?
Well, the thing that came straight into my head was like our tech jams that we run monthly, and that's, again, it's an educational thing, so once a month, second Saturday of every month, up in the library or down in Redruth, we have a monthly tech jam. We have such a diversity now, so we get kids from like 6-year-olds to, you know, retired professionals in their 70s. We get parents, we get accountants, we get software engineers, we get designers, we get all sorts of different people coming, you know, for different reasons. And so I think if you can find something that everybody's got like a shared interest and a shared passion in, then you can start to bring people together. I think it's much harder when you make it quite a hard topic, but actually when you bring that community into it. And also I think there's a certain extent that we have to go to them as well. So we have to take it to them because they're not necessarily the most, you know, they wouldn't naturally think to come to us. So I think being a more open community and being, you know, a bit more friendlier and those sort of things go an awful long way to make people feel like they can come. Because I think sometimes tech is pitched as this thing that you can only, you know, it's naturally, I don't quite know how to explain it because I don't think of it like that, but, you know, they think of this thing that's out of reach to them and that it's beyond them, when actually it's not. You know, IT is so diverse that there's something for everyone. So I think we need to educate and promote and bring up the awareness of tech, especially down here. It's still really low and came out in the Tech Nation report again as one of the key reasons why we think is holding the sector back, is because that lack of awareness and lack of engagement. So yeah, the more we can all do, the better, you know, whether it's, you know, at a business thing or whether it's, you know, a family event or something different completely.
I'm going to say, certainly in terms of code clubs, when you get volunteers from different sectors come through, you get connections between schools that maybe they would never have had a connection with, say, an accountancy firm. And so you've got the strength of the volunteer willing to come in and help children, but the school's also got a brand new contact to think about, you know, maybe that accountant would come in and talk to the people who are doing economics or finance at the GCSE level. So there's a whole range of things that you can do to mix and merge people. And yeah, it is a lot about trying to teach people that tech isn't difficult necessarily. You just have to have an idea about what you're doing, and if you encourage yourself to say, can I just have a go, that's actually half the battle, because you may find you've got a skill that you never even knew you had. And if you can take that skill further or talk to other people about that skill, then you suddenly feel a heck of a lot better, more confident yourself, build your own self-esteem up, and you can actually feel as if you can be part of this otherwise sort of elite crowd that might otherwise be deemed as that.
So one of the things that we do at Agile Beach, and is also occurring here, is actually by having different tracks. So having, you know, like something that's of interest to the business, as well as something that's of interest to people writing code, then something that's of interest to product owners. And by actually trying to attract people from different areas, you know, you bring people together. I think the other thing that is always worth doing as well is, you know, when you're attending something like, you know, a multi-track conferences, and, you know, if you're a developer, then perhaps just go and see something that's happening in the business area, or, you know, just to, so you can partly, you know, broaden your experiences and knowledge, but also you know, you get to meet different people. And then the key thing is to talk to other people after each track and, you know, find out what they thought about things, and you know, and it's that mixing. But the key thing is to have events that cover more than just very, very single subjects.
One thing I've done here, for example, I got asked if they should pay for my travel and my hotel, or if the company can do that. So I made the company do it, and I asked the organizer to offer free tickets for people that couldn't afford coming here instead of giving me money, because I didn't have to pay taxes and I don't know how to do that. So that's a good opportunity to offer at any event these kind of scholarship tickets for people that are not from already the in-the-know crowd that have to apply to them. And to reach people that go to that, you have to go out to schools, you have to go out to, I mean, we went to homeless shelters, we did all kind of things to reach where people that normally aren't at these things. What I find kind of depressing is that the whole barcamp movement died out and got run over by like growth hackers and like SEO experts and other bottom dwellers of technology. Because originally was the idea of barcamp was that anybody with a certain idea can present. Everybody who had to go had to be a presenter, and that way the diversity of these events were wonderful. I organized the first in London, the first in Hong Kong, and it was just great because you met people from all shades of life, really. But then it became too big and too exciting. There was a new one every week, and maybe we should revisit this kind of thing. So instead of having a technology event, we have an event like, okay, let's talk about agriculture, let's talk about world hunger, whatever. We talked earlier that in IoT, what I'm doing right now, and what we just did is like make up cows and have like little measure instruments inside cows, how healthy the cows are. I never thought I had to write a network of cows, but it was super exciting to talk to farmers and see what problems they face and how we as technologists can help them. And that's something, the ubiquity of technology is already there, but we don't reach out to the people that we could help a lot. And you're totally right that we have to increase that diversity that way.
I must admit, one of my passions with my first year computing students is to make sure that they understand that technology touches all facets of life, and I did take them out for the first time last year, first field trip ever.
For BSc computing here in Plymouth, I took them to a nature reserve in Wales, and we linked up with natural history students, and that's the first time I've seen computing students actually need to get to grips with there's people here, domain experts, looking at different aspects. So I think we've got lots of exciting things going on there. Anything else from the audience, please?
You have to pass that too far. Excellent. Thank you all for presenting today and doing everything as well. I've had a great time. Obviously, everyone here is already, just by being here, is engaged and involved in trying to build a community and trying to be more progressive in how we sort of approach technology in the Southwest. I was wondering if the panel could tell us a bit about their experiences of whether they find this sort of thing, if you want to foster this environment in a company, whether you have more success when it comes from the top down, from the bosses saying we are going to get involved in this kind of stuff, or whether it's better off when the team of developers at the bottom of the pile say we want to get involved in open source. Do you have experience of either of those approaches working, or is there another way I've not thought of that can get a company to spend more time and effort focusing on community and open source and other kind of aspects?
It's both sides. You need to start from the bottom up, and you need to find a sponsor on the top down. So instead of when the company says like we're going to make open source and make that happen right now, and you all be social, it's not going to happen. But if at the same time we all spend our free time only on doing these kind of things, it's great for our personal CV, but not good for the company, because it feels like okay, the company is not giving sponsorship time. I wrote a blog post about it a long time ago. When we get to interviews right now in IT, and we're one of the few markets where people are looking for us. Everybody else has to look for jobs. In job interviews, that's something that I ask for. I'm like, okay, what do we do about community time? What do we do about parental leave and maternity leave? Are they the same amount of days? What can I do to work home on Fridays if I have a family? Well, if we want more diversity and more social change in our market, then we in a position of power should demand that before we even go in. My partner just started a large company in Germany, and she just said like, okay, I have a dog, what do I do now? It's like, I cannot have a job when I have a dog, I have to stay at home. And I'm like, you just write in your CV that you bring a dog. And now they have an office dog, and they totally love that there's a dog in the office. So we can change these things if we just stomp our foot down and say like, okay, we're here, you need us, and let's do something about that. And of course, it's much more heartfelt then as well. The main thing to remember is metrics. Remember to record numbers, remember to show successes, remember how much more effective your team has become by using open source technologies or evaluating open source technologies, because if you can't put a number on it, then your sponsor cannot put a number on it for the shareholder meetings and for the director meetings, and then it's going to die out very quickly. There's a lot of companies that think that open sourcing is like, I have a product that I don't want to maintain anymore, so I open source it and the magical community will fix it for me. I call that farm sourcing, so the product is already dead, but instead we send it to the farm so I can play with other products or something. So this is not how to do that. You don't give away the technology you don't love anymore to a community to get it maintained. Best is if you actually start something new. If you start something very creative and very new. And the big thing that's happening right now in almost every large company, and small companies can do as well, is design systems. Like seeing how you build your products with reusable components, and these are easy to release on GitHub, and nobody's going to be annoyed because there's no credit card details or anything in there. So you can start with releasing more of those human-centered development stuff that you do. It's easy to release that open source than to release the hardcore, and here is how our company does the things that our competitors want to see. That's not an open source thing for most people.
Thank you. Anything from anyone else?
I'd just say, I mean, the top and the bottom bit is important, and you know, the top needs to be encouraging the bottom to feedback and things. And then the key thing is try things out, do those mini experiments. Say, we're going to try and do something for a month or a few months, and then see how it works and retrospect on that, and then work out: do you want to carry on doing it, stop doing it, or change?
Yeah, I think I kind of adding to that really, in that I think one of the things I've seen a couple of our members do with Software Cornwall is they're kind of trying things out by doing it for the community. So they kind of go, oh yeah, we think we can do that because we've got this widget and that thing and this thing. But actually, if we did it for Software Cornwall, then we can kind of almost validate it. So that's quite a cool way, I think, of almost using the community to test and build skills within a business and develop those relationships and social skills and things like that. I also think, coming back to Toby's point about kind of Agile on the Beach being multi-track and this conference being multi-track means that it's not just for developers, it is for the managers, it's for the marketeers, it's for the directors, it's for the customers. So actually you can get a whole team coming along. And one of the really interesting things I've seen a number of times with Agile on the Beach is one year we'll get a developer come along, or maybe two developers because they've talked their boss into letting them go, or even they've bought their own ticket. And then they'll go back and something will trigger and the MD or the director's ears prick, and then the next year the director comes, and then the year after that they buy like a dozen tickets. Because they go back and something, quite spectacular happens in the business, which, whether it's from the developers have got a smile on their face today, to the developers have just tweaked. I mean, literally one example, the developers have just tweaked our front page and sign-ups have gone up by 50%. Because they were inspired by going to the conference. So actually having that kind of open community, and inviting them along as well. There's a lot to be said for, have you invited the rest of the team? Have you invited your director? Have you made it open to them? I mean, one of the ways that I use, this sounds a bit odd, but like with our missions to Mars, we're always trying to get volunteers and mentors involved. And on the last day, I'm always inviting guests. One, to get guests to come and watch the kids, but also trying to get more people from businesses to come along and see how brilliant it is and suck them into helping us, So there is that kind of reasoning behind it to try and get more people involved. But actually, when you sit in the room with those kids and watch what they've done, you are inspired and you do want to help, and it is really lovely. So I think, just asking sometimes. I know I've said to people before, and they've kind of gone, well, what could I have said to make you, change your mind? And I said, but you could have asked.
That's a huge thing. Just also asking people to meet at events, asking speakers if they would come around to your office for something of those lunch break things, or do a Skype call with your office. And how cool is it for your boss to see that you got like a presenter at a conference to talk to your office, or run a meetup in your office, invite Code Club, invite Coder Dojo, to actually use your spaces for these kind of things. So that's one way to get it. Much like we hire consultants to tell us the things we already know, but we actually don't want to say to each other, we can do the same thing with like outside experts to tell the boss, hey, we're doing this by the way as well, and right now I do it in my free time. Can we get some time to make something official out of that? So getting that foot in the door by asking somebody at an event to come to your place is a very successful way of doing it.
Yeah, and what can also be better still is if you get those group of people together, you could literally have a retired engineer sat next to a CEO, sat next to a student, sat next to a 10-year-old kid, and the community feel that you do get from all of that is just fantastic. And you find then people are not perhaps so interested in individual people's careers, but they actually start seeing a vocation feeling coming through, and then with that you get a momentum going and potentially a movement being created as well, and that in itself creates a solid sort of base for genuine things to start happening and to continue happening as well.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm aware of the time, so I'd like to thank the audience, I'd like to thank the panel. Are there any final words from anyone else here?
Yeah, well done. Well done to Marina and Tony for driving this forward, and well done for everyone else to make it happen, and well done for everyone for coming. I think the most crucial part of conferences is people, and it's everybody here that actually makes the whole thing a success. So well done to everyone.
Thanks.
No, we're back. The other thing to mention is I'm just kind of sat here and looking at everybody and kind of going, actually, this is quite a cool, diverse audience as well. You know, we've got quite a good amount of women in the audience. It's like I almost want to make us cheer. You know, but young and old, and you know, different areas. I'm kind of spotting familiar faces from far down west, and then people from up in the Exeter kind of way. So I just think it's really lovely that we've all come together. And going back to the first question, like Glenn, I think we need to do more of it. You know, make more of it. So yeah, well done.
Thank you, Caroline. No final comments?
Well, you know what to do now. It's time you do it, and I expect lots of meetups to happen from now on. Get with it, okay?